Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to return to the issue of the retained EU law bill which is passing through Parliament and aims to eradicate thousands of our rights and protections in one fell swoop. Now, I've already discussed sort of 3 levels of madness regarding this bill, but there's a 4th as well, as described by a senior barrister who specialises in constitutional law. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So this is a beauty. I alluded to 3 previous levels of madness in this pyramid of insanity. So I'll go over those first before I explain this 4th one, which should, if parliamentarians had any sense at all, cause them to drop the whole bill into the bin and then set fire to the bin. It's the result of a very drunken dare on behalf of Brexit lunatics. Shouldn't be taken seriously at all by anyone with any sense. So the first level is what the bill purports to do. Abolish thousands of rights and protections which we built over decades of membership of the EEC and the EU. They were not imposed on us. 98% of them were supported by the UK government at the time. It is more accurate to say that they are rules and regulations that we worked on with our neighbours as in our common interests. You know, the standout rights are things like the right to paid annual leave and sick pay. But there are a whole load of protections in there as well. But imagine the political consequence of abolishing the right to paid annual leave, just as a simple example. Do the Tories think they'll ever be elected again after that? Not until they've cleared out literally every MP responsible anyway. The government say that it won't affect these sorts of rights, but this is the same government who said there would be no trade border in the Irish Sea as well. The second level of madness is the chaos this would unleash amongst our businesses. Consider that the vast majority of businesses, being small and medium-sized enterprises, didn't understand at all, actually even some big ones, didn't understand at all how Brexit was going to affect their trade. In fact, what became very clear very quickly in 2021 is that the average business owner had less of an understanding of how Brexit was going to affect their trade than I did as just an interested observer. Now imagine how those same business owners who were lacking either the time or the ability to find out how a major constitutional change was going to affect their business would respond to the idea of thousands of rules no longer existing. Because there were experts who understood how Brexit was going to affect things. That's how I sort of understood how Brexit was going to affect things, because the experts laid it out. No one knows how this is going to affect things. That's how bad it is. You know, how are businesses going to know which rules still apply and which ones don't? How many businesses would do their own research on the internet, because that always works out well, think they get it because some guy on Facebook who claimed to be a lawyer said a thing, and then behave accordingly? Then someone else thinks, no, actually, I think you've got that wrong. I think you're breaking the law, and takes them to court. The courts would be absolutely jammed with cases. We wouldn't know where we were until judges set the record straight on how the law should be interpreted. Because we need to remember, although Parliament makes the laws, most of the people who do so are not lawyers. So it sometimes takes a court case before we know what the law actually does. It doesn't always do what MPs who voted for it thought it does, because they don't understand the legal documents that they're passing into law. Most of them don't read it anyway. They just go through whichever door the ape in charge of their party's whipping tells them to. So it would be chaos amongst British businesses. Not just British businesses, foreign businesses who may want to invest in Britain. There'll be wild speculation flying in all directions. Let us just hope that these businesses don't do their research by reading the Mail or the Express, or even, heaven help us, the Sun. Then the third level of madness. So the Brexit lunatics think that deregulation on this scale will make our businesses more competitive. I mean, all those workers' rights and environmental standards, to say nothing of those pesky safety laws, all a terrible drag on businesses, so they think. They think it will help us become a sort of sweatshop, and we can sell our products more cheaply, you know, like they can in other countries that have no human rights. But the EU aren't about to let their businesses with the higher European standards fall prey to this. So in line with the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which completely allows this, they will apply corrective measures to protect their own market from these products. That means tariffs in all probability. So we won't be selling our products cheaper after all, because we'll have extra tariffs slapped on them. All we'll be doing is removing people's rights, giving business owners a bigger headache, ramming our court system further, and for no actual gain of any kind. But now there's a fourth level of madness. George Peretz KC, I keep saying QC, it's KC now, who's a constitutional lawyer, has identified some nonsense in the actual wording of the bill. Because here's the thing. How do you just abolish thousands of rules in one go? Normally Parliament, Parliament repeals law. It does three things. It changes laws, it creates new laws, and it repeals laws that it thinks are no longer fit for purpose. But how does it do that? Well, it picks a law that it thinks is no longer needed. It debates it, holds committees. The committees take evidence. They look at how repealing that legislation might affect other legislation. Lots of scrutiny is involved. But the retained EU law bill doesn't go through this process. It circumvents the entire parliamentary scrutiny process. It is designed to destroy any regulation that we adopted in our decades of membership of the EEC or EU. Just gone. Peretz notes that the way the bill is going to do this is to set aside any legislation which was made under Section 2 of the ECA 72 or under any other power for the purpose of implementing an EU obligation. Very vague. Peretz points out that this is a nonsense because statutory instruments tell you under which powers they were made, and they are often the result of several different powers. Also, that some provisions within the SI, the statutory instrument, are made under one power and others under a different power. And there's no clarity as to which is which. Presumably because there's no need, because no one would ever think of just trashing thousands of regulations without any scrutiny. And the upshot of this is that if you are trying to work out if a particular rule is now in place, so let's say the retained EU law bill has become law, so it's now the Retained EU Law Act, and it's been enacted because it's intended to chop these regulations out at the end of the year. It's possible for some ministers to give some of them a stay of execution, but they haven't got time to work out which one. So they're all gone, or the vast majority of them are gone at the end of this year. You won't know which rules are gone. All you know is that, loads of rules that were made as a result of our EEC or EU membership are now gone. You don't know which ones. In order to know if a rule still exists, because it did exist, but does it exist now? You'd have to work out under which power the particular rule was made. And as Peretz is saying here, it's not always clear under which power it was made. And as the government have no intention of committing the officials needed to carry out the onerous work to work out such a list, that means the only way to know is to go to court and ask senior judges what they think. And if people disagree with the judges, because I don't know, I guess it would go to the High Court first, it would have to end up in the Supreme Court. They are the final arbiter of UK constitutional law. But there are thousands of these rules for the chop. How many years is it going to take for the Supreme Court to have to go through each one? Because you have to bring up each one individually, along with their normal caseload. And I had considered, before I read this, that the main confusion amongst business owners and leaders would be a result of there being so many changes which haven't been properly documented by the government. But, even legal experts would have no idea, because what this bill aims to do is way more complicated than even I had realised. If you were someone thinking of investing in the UK in the next few years, if you have any idea this bill is even passing through Parliament, you'd be mad to consider it. If this bill is passed into law and if it's implemented as intended at the end of this year, there will literally be thousands of laws that no longer exist. But we will not know for certain which ones exist and which ones do not. We will know that some rules no longer apply, but nobody, not even the people who wrote this bill, will know which ones. Chaos doesn't even begin to cover this clown show. And I'll add in another thing finally, because none of the Brexiteers behind this ridiculous bill have been able to name a single regulation that it will remove that is bad for the UK. So I'm going to go out on a limb and argue that they're all probably fairly useful rules, and they know it. That's why they won't name any. So because these thousands of rules will find favour with some people at least, every single one of them will be challenged. Even the ones that people sort of think probably have gone. I mean, it might actually be considered reasonably clear with certain ones that were, yeah, well, these were definitely implemented as a result of EU membership, for example. So you think, well, that's clear enough. So businesses behave as if the rule no longer exists. They're fairly confident. But supporters of the rules may say, well, hang on a minute. Are we really sure the rule no longer exists? I think we should ask the courts. So you can really see every individual rule and regulation ever implemented in half a century in this country being taken to court to see if it actually exists or not. Peretz refers to this concept as Schrodinger's SI. They both exist and don't exist until senior judges open the box and let us know. Lots of money flying about for barristers working in public law. Lots of money draining away from the UK economy. What a madness. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.